with Spirit of Matter. And this is the Venus day with Jupiter hour. Jupiter in the 10th degree of Taurus in the 9th house. With the Sun in Pisces, most angular in the 7th house, 4 degrees on the descendant. Ascendant and midheaven ruled by Mercury, which is also in the 7th house in Pisces. So Mercury has ingressed into Pisces today. And a moon in the 12th house, 24 degrees Leo. And yes, Venus is still conjuncting Mars in Aquarius. So Venus and Mars have been conjuncting each other on and off. One of the things that I seen in the neighborhood was a picture of red flowers sitting next to the garbage can. So there were red flowers on the table next to the garbage can. You see the proximity here to Pluto, which rules compost, but also what we throw out. So that was very interesting. Plenty of red in that picture. So Mars, red, Venus flowers, and the garbage can, of course, is Pluto. But this episode is actually about March. And as for the caption, why Baba March? Baba March is actually a Bulgarian fest. And the story goes that March was a very moody woman because she had two lovers, but they were not physically compatible. So yes, and this is actually, I know, thanks to a Bulgarian friend who was an ethnologist. So yes, shout out to Violeta Perikliva. Now, what's happening in March other than the eclipse? So first of all, there is an eclipse in March, a Libra eclipse. I'm going to go over this. Nothing too exciting, just a stellium in Aries with Chiron conjuncting Rahu. As you understand, there is something to talk about, but I don't want to concentrate only on what I already talked about, which is the eclipses of 2024. Let's see what else is happening. So, first of all, Sun will ingress to his sign of exaltation on March 20. Okay. Before we talk about the lunations, Mercury ingresses to Aries on March 10. Okay. Venus on March 11 enters Pisces. So Mercury is going to move out of Pisces, but then we have Venus. Mars is going to enter Pisces on March 23rd. So if you have been following in the last couple of months for the astro weather, you have seen that the stellium, okay, the pack of planets have been moving around from Capricorn to Aquarius. And this month, we're going to have a significant amount of planets in Pisces. So we have, of course, Sun and Saturn already there. Mercury will move out quickly, but then we are going to have Venus and Mars all at the same time. And now Pisces is getting the attention, but not just Pisces, all the mutable axes, which is Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius. What does it mean to have a stellium? Okay, so I'm going to give you a funny story. I currently have a stellium in my 12th house, which is also the house of dreams. And the stellium, let's look at Aquarius, consists of up until today, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and the Pluto. And so I had a dream that somebody, actually a colleague, was triangulating another colleague, and he was trying to make me jealous by gifting that person a car from some sort of series that was a Fibonacci series. Okay, I'm not joking, this was the dream. I really wanted that car. So he got me jealous because I wanted that car. Um, and so Venus rules car, psychological acts of triangulation and stuff like that is more to do with both the Venus and Mars and Pluto. Colleagues, because Aquarius is astrology. And and they were using images where their hair was looking weird, but like yes, they had the hair of Jean-Claude Van Damme in Hard Target. I'm not joking. And so hair, of course, is a Saturn, and the picture, the use of picture was Mercury, and the pictures were black and white, which is, I would say Pluto, but you could also say Aquarius or Saturn Pisces, which is kind of dim, and so on. So that was a very, very strange dream. I woke up, I was totally cracking in joke. What the hell was going on? This is the meaning of having a packed house. Okay, in this case, very weird dream. So a lot of activities involving the planets that are in this house. Now we're going to have this with Pisces. So we already have Saturn and Neptune. We're going to have the Sun for the most month. And just as Mercury moves out, we have Venus, and then a day after Mars coming in. So that is going to be looking like a lot of activities for anybody with placements in Pisces, Virgo, Sag, or Gemini. But not only that, even if you don't have any planets there, these signs have rulers. Okay, so wherever the rulers are, is going to be affected by this. And suddenly you're going to have transits. So you're going to have an inactive life field, or a life field that was partially active and it's kind of like active only by the merit of the ruler and associated with another life aspect, now receives a lot of attention. So let's say it's the fourth house for you. That would mean, for example, that your house would not have, let's say, a lot of guests. And now your neighbor is having a party while your landlord wants to renew the contract for the apartment. And then, I don't know, you break your grandmother's glass, and so on and so forth, all at the same month. And you're like, this is crazy. What's going on? Do I need to cleanse my house? No, there is a transit in your fourth house. That's what it looks like. So if you know a little bit more astrology, then you know which houses are those. But I also want you to keep in mind that those houses involve Jupiter and Mercury. So where is Jupiter and Mercury in your chart? And also when Mercury ingresses into Aries, we are not done with the Pisces activity. It's just going to leak into the Aries house of yours. So let's say I'm Pisces ascendant. I have to beware of, let's say, accidents, especially in public transportation or around cars. And then, of course, probably I would have to renew, let's say, the contract for my house. But then Mercury will move into my second house, which might mean I will have a certain expense. It can be maybe I want to buy some new clothes or sports clothes, which is Mars Venus. And so the activity from the first house will begin to manifest either in income or in expenses in my second house. Okay, if Pisces was the fourth house, now it goes into the fifth. Let's say you redecorated the home, you broke grandmama's glass, but now you decided that you're going to show her the Japanese art of putting gold in the broken pieces and hope that everybody would be satisfied. So you have a new hobby of taking these broken things, Mars, and putting them together as something new. So Chiron Aries. And this is how those things begin to interact. All that while, Jupiter is still in Taurus, so anything that comes to Pisces goes through your Jupiter or affects and is affected by your Taurus house as well. And yes, so Jupiter tends to magnify things. So with Pisces, you are going to feel what is happening. Well, although you might not feel this in your Pisces house directly, for sure you will feel it in Taurus and wherever your natal Jupiter is. So this is how it's going to affect on you, kind of like the overall energies. And again, from what I said, you understand that even if you don't have planets in Pisces, for this month, you absolutely do. Affecting everybody. Now, let's talk about the eclipse because it's impossible not to. And this is the Libra eclipse. 5 degrees Libra, Sol in Aries. Of course, we already talked about a lot of things here, but the important thing to pay attention to is, first of all, Chiron and Rahu are only 2 degrees away. Okay? Chiron involved eclipses are on a mundane level big. Okay, we are going to hear those eclipses. Don't expect this on a mundane level. Don't expect this to be, it is not Jupiter season in that way. It's not Jupiter eclipses. It is, although Jupiter makes things big, but it is conflict related. It is finances related. And Chiron brings the kind of a wounded healer energy, but it can also mean that as people, let's say, fight for the ideal of sovereignty and autonomy, they are also experiencing a certain sort of challenge in exercising this. Chiron has been in Aries, it's not new. The vicinity to Rahu, while it can bring about, let's say on a personal level, a certain sort of healing, although probably not without crisis, it is also on a mundane level, yes, it is a certain sort of crisis. Mars is in Pisces, not too far from Fomalhaut, but again, mundanely, I wouldn't count on that. Okay, Fomalhaut is a royal star, very intuitive, psychic. But Mars in Pisces is very much allowing things to be. This is Pisces. Mars is conflict, so allowing this conflict to be. Okay, it has pros and cons because it's not a resistance of the conflict. However, it is also not a reality check to the conflict. Okay, there are wounds that guide the action with this eclipse. So, wounded sovereignties, okay, and in Mars in Jupiter sign is either big action or trying to take big action. If there is going to be failed army scenes, they are going to be big. And of course, Pisces is liquidity, and Mars is fiscal, but also real estate assets. And here we can expect a bubble burst, a bubble formation, okay? Even if a bubble is going to pop, it will inflate before it pops. So I would probably cautious when it comes to purchasing assets. Is also pertaining to liquid assets. And here again, because Rahu Chiron is involved, there can be a kind of like a bubble popping. The co-presence with Saturn can be around, let's say, stocks. Now, I'm not saying 29th, okay, 1929, kind of bubble popping. I'm cautious with these big statements, but definitely a minuscule of crisis, war-involved crisis. Also, if you are, let's say, invested in the type of a weapon that is having a spy involved, okay, spying, or a medical warfare type of things that you may know or not know about. Okay, for you, maybe you are just thinking, oh, there's this new vaccine coming out and so on, and want to stop, and it looks like a good deal. And something good for humanity. So there could be an illusion there. So that those kinds of bubbles can pop. Okay. So now with Chiron Rahu, there is a deep desire to heal a wound. And this, you have to look at your Aries place. Where is Aries for you? Okay, because you want to heal a wound, and you want to try something new, but Mars Pisces can create a little bit of illusion and disillusionment, a sense of loss. So if you're doing something like therapy or healing or even energy healing or even astrology, there might be a bubble popping, okay? And this one would be particularly suspicious of being a letdown because the Rahu here. Okay, Rahu really, really wants to tend to this wound. You already want to heal that. And this can be a wound around your finances, around your sovereignty. And you know, finances and sovereignty are very much related. Around housing, okay, real estate, more to say. Okay, housing is one study case of real estate. So real estate, liquid assets, okay, utilizing loans, okay, because Saturn Pisces is, for example, the use of loans and the trickery with loans, not trickery by the merit of Mercury, but by the merit of Neptune, which is more obscure and dual, okay? And you might want to facilitate through a loan some sort of a liquidity, or invest in something and facilitate a loan, and there could be a serious bubble popping, okay? What I want to say around real estate, I'm not as an expert on the topic, I am absolutely not, but more a point of observation. Okay, we are often told a lot of narratives that if you find good opportunities in times of crisis, like during a war, you will win, and so on and so forth. One famous example was when people were told you will take a loan. You tell the bank that you take a loan for investment, and the tenant will pay the rent. Now, of course, when your motivation for doing such business is to become the exploiter instead of being exploited, then you don't, scratch your own itch in that sense. So you're more susceptible to crookery, okay? And this doesn't mean you're a bad person. You might think, okay, I'm leveling up. But the reasoning I'm doing this is because I don't like to pay rent. And so this is not good enough, usually a motivation to build any sort of business and to sustain it, okay? Because you are up against people that are way less considerate than you and are way more seasoned in trickery than you. And so what happened with these houses that people bought, of course, the tenants could no longer own it. And sometimes they would take companies to take care, like management companies. It doesn't sound bad. And there was a time that this was working. Yes, when the market was okay, it was working. But then came the house flippers. Tenants could not pay the rent. Damage would be done on the behalf of the tenant. So you, the owner, would think this is the tenant, they are ruining my place. They are not. It has to do with certain companies and other things that wanted to ask you for protection. And then you said, well, it's more beneficial for me to sell the place, and this is how your estate would be flipped. And repetitive sales, and you know it's real estate, it always goes up, everybody needs a place to be. So you understand what you're making the money from. In such cases, this is a bubble that pops every now and then. That means that you, with the loan on your name, losing credit score, having no money to pay, and even if you managed to sell the place, definitely all these business things are on your account, and eventually you could get unlucky and not manage to sell because nobody wants the business with the house flippers. And then you would lose money because you would be extorted, okay, by the big companies that can buy all of these neighborhood and so on and so forth. So I'm telling this story to you because this month is quite suspicious for such crookery. I'm not saying there are no good chances there. I'm not a real estate person. But if you've never done this before and you say, oh, I want to be like those people that make profit off of this, this is where you could get yourself disillusioned. Rahu means there's extra point of illusion and disillusionment. Chiron, you have a wound around this, you're wound motivated, which is not necessarily bad, it's just the proximity to Rahu that makes it more difficult. And Mars in Pisces, you are, you're in the deep waters, you're in the ocean. Okay, so you want to tone down this type of behavior. And perhaps if you are working with a fixed star formula, then it can give you a kind of psychic intuition into things, okay? And however, because this is an eclipse, there can be some fated action, whether it's benefic or it is leading to a loss, that can also be fated. So it can be that this is the loss that would prompt you to change and transform and whatnot, but this loss is kind of fated for you. Or it can be that you are pushed to make a certain decision or a certain initiation. Now let's talk about this Ketu in Libra and the place of Venus in this eclipse. Venus is also in Pisces. She's close to Saturn, but separating from Saturn and slowly applying to Neptune. She is also separating from a sextile to Jupiter and applying to sextile with Uranus. What this tells me is that the letting go that is required to you of your old values, the old balance in your life, the old way in which you used to balance things, okay, could be facilitated a lot easier. There's a sudden eureka around where you're letting go, but also Ketu is the wisdom from the ancients. So how they did heuristic in the past, how they did beauty in the past, that can bring you a little bit of a spiritual eureka that is very much in the tone of suddenly letting go, relaxing and releasing, that can really assist you at this time. This is also the closing sextile of Venus and Uranus. Okay, so and Venus is in Pisces. She's at the point of exaltation. She is still conjunct in Saturn, but separating. And this co-presence of Saturn, I'm actually not concerned too much because it gives me a little bit of a reality check as per this Venus. So let's say, I don't know, you are ascendant Aries and this Ketu is in your 7th house. And what you are eclipsing is actually an old relationship. This one will give you a sudden sense of relief. So let's say this is a person you truly love and they truly loved you, but for some reasons you are, you're meant to be with yourself at this time. What you will experience is that even though, let's say, you're separated and there's grieving or it is sad, the minute you made this conversation and decided we sever ties, there is a sense of relief. There is a new joy in your life, even if it doesn't seem to have a reason. So, or if you had to leave a job or a career, you will see that, let's say you get fired or you leave the job, and then once you let go, and sometimes it's forced upon you, okay? You're resigned, you have to leave for some reason. The minute you do it, you're going to feel relieved. So this is what I like to say about this Ketu, is that Venus is not shying off of the letting go. She's happy to let that go already. Although nothing is completely ready in the new, she is already happy that she no longer carries this old baggage. And the happiness is real, okay? When it comes to the eureka with Uranus, Venus happiness is real right now. It's the eureka of letting go, of a certain closure, relief from this. And it's not, she is a planet to conjunct Neptune, but other than that is likely to be something is not so much of an illusion, more like even if I don't have everything, set for me, I'm so glad that I no longer am entangled with that old, and this could be responsibility, relationship, or even certain type of assets or values, or the old ways in which you balance things in your Libra house, and the house where your Venus is, and your Taurus house. Anything more to say about this eclipse? Yes, Pluto in Aquarius, 1 degree, is forming harmonious aspect to the moon and the sun. And harmonious aspect doesn't necessarily mean easy, because Pluto is intense. It's an outer planet, and when personal planets meet outer planets, there is a level of intensity that is added to the transition. However, Pluto facilitates the transformation. And Pluto provides with a certain reality check by the merit of its ruler Saturn being in Pisces. So what we can expect with this is that you are transformed by these eclipse events. However, the fact that you are transformed, the things are changing from the core in those levels where Mars and Venus rule in your life and in your chart, is providing you with a sense of relief. Even though it might be new and you don't already have what is to be, and you already have to let go, this adds to your understanding that this letting go is meaningful, even if I don't yet have the where I'm going. And so that can be a wonderful help, because unlike eclipses where we saw in 2023, where Pluto was squaring the nodes, this one, Pluto is forming more harmonious aspects. There's still predicted to be crisis, to be conflict, to be this, but there is also that understanding that there is an evolution here, and this very understanding is met with perhaps more, I wouldn't necessarily say readiness, but definitely sometimes when you know that this is meaningful to you and you have a tiny bit more leverage by the merit of what you've let go. There's less burden because you've let go. Then now you are more ready to be transformed. You say, I might not know what this is about, but it is fated for me to be transformed in a certain way. And I've already let go of this burden, so I'm more available to change. Yes, it's still an eclipse with Ketu Rahu conjoining with Mars in Pisces. No rose-colored glasses here, okay? So financial crisis, housing, it can be both inflation and bubble popping, sovereignty-related issues. And take a look at the asteroids really quick. Yes, I want. Oh, now is the time where I have to find Aries. Going to look at Isis. And I'm going to look at banks. I don't know why I'm going to look at gold, opportunity, silver, but yes, let's see if I have more place to look at Aries. Yes, now 8. There really is an 8 asteroid. Okay, so Aries is close to Mercury here. She's not actively participating in the eclipse the way she did in, let's say, April 2023. So there is a relief from the Aries. Now, Mercury is still conjuncting Aries. There is still co-presence, but the focus now is more on the Chiron Rahu. The asteroid Gold, and I was called to look at it, is co-present with the Sun. So there's going to be something happening to the gold. Now, and the asteroid Academia is co-present with Mars. And the asteroid Banks is retrograde, co-present with Ketu. So first of all, I'm really thankful to Peter from AstroSeek for updating the asteroid list that allows me to give you a way more accurate prediction just by putting this in. Asteroids can be so simple in the sense that if there is a name, it usually pertains to what's related to that name. Okay, so academia, there is some sort of crisis involving academia. Gold, some sort of something to do with gold. Maybe more people would want to invest in gold. If this is a good thing or not, I cannot tell you because Sun is exalted in Aries. However, the situation for Rahu Chiron, people might want to turn to gold. And again, you want to beware of over investing, and you can also a little bit of lose something because Mars is where it's at. The asteroid Academia is next to Fomalhaut. There can be slander scandals about finances of the Academia. Or hidden kind of like religion stuff. So we'll see what is happening in academia. But the most prominent one, and also the tightest aspects, I believe, almost the tightest aspect, would be Banks. And Banks is right conjunct Ketu. What just recent, okay, Ketu, something we're letting go of, but also wisdom from the ancients. And Banks retrograde. So again, I'm not saying this is a colossal all breakdown type of things. To be honest, I don't know how to predict like a 29 level of crisis, but definitely this a certain way in which we are doing banking and laws around banking, okay, because Libra is about laws around banking, trade. And Venus in Pisces is something to do with a viral theme. So it can be all across the board. So it can be trade and shipping rules, or the type of businesses that we have that are for all over the world. We know that there are already problems with shippings, with taxes on shippings, okay, Mars Pisces. That's a restriction on international shipping, higher rates. But here is completely something, the laws around those things are going to be changing. All the way in which we did those international banking is going to change. Switzerland may be involved here because, Libra banks, more Libra, yes, Libra banks, and this is a retrograde. So what I predict to be is actually that the very banks that we saw in trouble in the previous section of this Pluto in Aquarius are now going to come about with weird suggestions, but also with changes. Okay, the banks themselves are letting go. We are letting go some banks. We're letting go of certain facets of international banking. Okay, and so people might want to look for new ways to if they to invest or to store money. They might revert to, hey, let's buy gold. With Pisces, gold can be lost, and also it can be fake gold, okay, or you might try to find gold in the ocean in some like weird ways. And so it can be a mini gold rush, okay, a mini gold rush. But sometimes this is supposed to, yes, the important things is to make your steps with caution, okay? Adhere to Saturn. The presence of academia is very interesting. There can be a conflict around academia or around finances. It can be a conflict about the economic and political teachings as well as health teachings in the academia. Okay, the entire healthcare profession, the entire also the issue of astrology in academia. Okay, if you try to innovate and let's say have academic level of astrology, there can be conflict around. There will also be a reality check. So if academia is losing its glory, it might on the one hand want to open up to stuff like channeling, astrology, more Neptunian types of stuff. But it can also mean that there is a reality check to this. Okay, how are you going to certify who is a good channeler, who is not a good channeler? How are you going to certify what qualifies for astrological certification or a medical certification for a shaman or a healer? And so it's both about the reality checks on the attempts to make something completely unstructured, structured, as well as the opening up through conflicts. So academia is losing its glory. We definitely saw this. More and more people are involved in being aware that what we are taught is not exactly suffice to understand what we are seeing, and places that were considered a very prestige. Academic structure is the church structure. So this is Capricorn structure. It had more and more powers. Academic institutions were rising and rising, certain types of them, and transforming, and then they reached a certain peak. With Pluto Aquarius, we are talking more about a type of studies that is less hierarchical. Okay, so it's very science oriented, but scientific revolution does not happen within the academia, but only in clandestine ways. And so the academia might try to flex its, flex its gate. It's already doing that, but might try to appeal to the masses as a result of some sort of conflict. Or I know, for example, in Israel, people are talking about funding a whole degree for the soldiers. So stuff like this to sort of retrieve the glory of having an academic degree. And yes, science and academia are not totally unrelated, but Pluto in Aquarius is where studies, the real advances happen outside of established structures. So you also want to keep that in mind if, let's say, you are this soldier going to have a degree and dedicate, I don't know how many years of your life. Yes, you must do it with the intentions that are more realistic. So, anything more about this eclipse? Yes, Mercury, Aries, the co-presence give us more facets of trade. Okay, so booming of trying to look into gold, all aspects from mining to investing to collecting to even learning about or having a philosophy around, okay, to loss and so on. But definitely people will be taking their assets out of the banks, and they will be glad to be doing so. Will it be kind of digital ID for banking? I think the Jupiter Uranus might be about this, but it's not yet Not yet. This is more about just looking into other means of. This might be the eclipse where banks have to come up with the restrictive rules later, because in this one they're just losing glory. People take money out of the banks. They try to have gold around them, like physically, or liquidify their gold if they have gold, or liquidify the assets, turn them into gold, something like that. While the more restrictive measures after the carrot, then there's the stick, and this is where the Jupiterianus is more suspicious of, let's say, digitation of assets. Okay, but I'm not saying there are not going to be attempts. Here it's going to be presented as a more of a solution. If you see solutions to fraud and inflation in fraud, especially around identities, yes, you understand that those who offer you the solution are the same people who created the problem. But now I think it would more be like, hey, we have this new technological solution for your problem of identity theft and so on. And medicine can be involved as well in this. So it's nothing new. But with eclipse, yes, it's another layer of what was. But it's an important layer. Okay, it will be felt. Okay, to what degree it will be felt, I honestly don't know. I'm not experienced in predicting stuff like this, but it will be felt. Now we can go back to what's happening this month. So let's talk about lunations. Mars 10, we have a new moon in Pisces. So there's a new cycle beginning in 20 degrees of Pisces. This means that the mutable axis and where your Mercury and Jupiter are is activated. So let's say your, yes, Pisces, Sagittarius, Gemini, and Virgo, but also let's say you have Jupiter in Cancer, then your Cancer house is also lit. This new lunation, right off the bat, is sextiling Uranus at 19 degrees, still 19-degree Uranus. It's the closing sextile. So if you remember the new moon in Aquarius, which was squaring Uranus, okay, now we have the closing sextile. This is where we can have a little bit of a resolution to the tension that was in the new moon in Aquarius. What was tensed before, what was conflictual, what was crisis-like Eureka, is now a bit more fluid, a bit more flowing. Jupiter also sextiles Saturn in the 11th degree of Pisces, Jupiter 12th degree of Taurus. Jupiter is the ruler of this new moon. So what I like about it is that the sextile between Saturn and Jupiter is in a Pisces degree of Taurus, so there's manifesting. But Saturn is in the 11th degree that is associated with electricity, but more like electricity cuts. There can be interceptions to things to do with the air, or nervous systems and so on. For those who are more sensitive to it, yes, there can be suicide, either ideation or perhaps consideration. Doesn't have to be lethal, but it can be a topic that rises, or death with dignity can rise. What I like about this style is that it's a good combination of extraction and expansion. Jupiter, Saturn harmonious aspects can give us a reality check to where we are dreaming, over dreaming, over optimistic, and also an expansion to where we have weary. So let's say if you were a little bit suicidal or there was something, a power cut, Jupiter can give you kind of more dreamy quality, manifesting the life that you do dream about, and your desired result. And that can relieve and ease the situation where you're not too optimistic, but you are not too pessimistic as well. So that is a very good combination to have. And of course, the sextile to Uranus is a sudden eureka, but this sudden eureka is not involving too much crisis. So your nervous system is agitated because there is Mars in Aquarius, and Mars gives us a more proneness to inflammation. It's more heat to the nervous system, but it's not a Uranus type of yes, it's not an outer planet thing. So Mars moves relatively quickly. This soon shall pass, while Uranus can stay for a couple of months in a degree, in the 19th degree in Taurus. It has been there for a while. And that can be something that takes a little more time to resolve. So what can we expect? New beginnings to do with certain type of creative projects that require technology, even sort of banking or investments. Again, Chiron and Rahu are conjunct. So anything Mars ruled is, there is proneness to illusion, because you really want to do it, you really want to tend to this wound, but it's not yet where you are experienced enough to assess risk correctly. Okay, that being said, Venus in an air sign is money flying out of the pocket. Just so, okay, not in a huge degree, but it's also something to think about. Mars in an air sign is, yes, money making a marathon run outside of the pocket. So you want to also be compassionate with yourself, and perhaps a new beginning, where instead of like completely losing it, you will work more with focusing on what you desire, focusing on manifestation of the things you do want in your life. The more they are Venus Jupiter related, the more likely it is to still carry something more than just to get your mind away from what Mars just did. The more Marsy they are, and I will exemplify what, the more likely you are to cause yourself a little bit of a nervous system breakdown. What is Venusy? What is Marsy? So Venus, AI related type of art, conjoining art and AI. Music that has a facet of science or technology involved in it. Cars that have a different type of energy. Okay, I think it's beyond hydrogen or solar energy. Here is maybe a certain sound wave based energy for sure. I just don't see how it's doing cars good while doing ours good. But it will have to find the right frequency so it can drive like music, because Venus rules cars. So arts, yes, music, cars, women-related technologies, but not for safety, okay? Because Mars rules danger, and so this is where this can tank, okay? When you don't involve Mars then you open yourself to possibilities. When you involve Mars, you open yourself to bad risk assessment. Mars rules real estate, it rules finances that are competitive, it rules the weapon industry. And here, like new technologies around weapon stuff, um, this is something that uh, might might show as not as uh, profitable as you would expect it to be, or it would badly affect the nervous system. Okay, especially if it is sound waves. Okay, this is where the music is not so okay good to your um, cellular growth. So to put it gently. Mars is also associated with raw sexuality. And so, let's say if you are investing, I don't know, in new technologies around sexuality, then say for people with disability, then dildos or high vibrating stuff is less advisable at this time. Something that works more on I know what's Venus, pleasant textures, or connecting with how the female not the female sex parts orgasm feels might be more benefic to you. Okay, this is just the Mars Venus kind of distinction. Other Mars Venus distinctions. If it's a relationship that you are starting, then women relations are more advisable than Mars relations. You could be a little bit disillusioned with the sex, okay? If it is highly reliant on Martian qualities. So we said war, conflict. Yes, there could be somebody starting something on a mundane level like conflict and hacking and whatnot, but that can be also a little bit of, in a very little literal way, jumping the gun, and that is not advised. So more things to do with this lunation. Again, it's a closing sextile to Uranus, so definitely creative solutions, definitely great arts that involves technology. This is a time where if you are scared or had a crisis around, let's say, AI, now you are more joining forces. So anything around more Piscean things, so it's a shipment, new ways to ship things, because Moon is also traveling, shipping gold, shipping goods, and also new philosophies can be formed here, but they will play out on themes that we already were thinking about. It's like, well, where would the solution come? Now you have the refining of what began in the new moon in Aquarius, which wasn't the exact same degree combination. Just to show you how much time Uranus spends in this degree in Taurus. Now, some more interesting stuff. Let's talk about synodic cycles. This is always a great way to assess a month, how many new beginnings and endings we're going to have. So first we have Sun conjuncting Neptune on 17 March. This is an ending to the cycle of the Sun and Neptune and a new beginning. This one will have the moon releasing from a square to it, so we're going to feel it upon its perfection. as the moon approaches the end of Gemini, and a sextile, of course, to Pluto, a building sextile to Pluto. Mars Neptune, Sun Neptune. So classic that I will confuse. Neptune is about confusion, and conjunction is a hard aspect. So, a new type of performers and performances, new leaders, new types of poets and musicians. You want to think about liquid gold in a more holistic way. So it could be in a very literal way and holistically liquid gold. Neptune liquid, Sol is gold. What would be the equivalent of liquid gold? The Sun is opening a sextile with Pluto right after, so this liquid gold can give you a drive for a certain opulence. The moon squaring will mean that this is going to be felt. Okay? So this new beginning is going to be felt. Your view of what is liquid gold to you is going to be going through an update. When it comes to leadership, then, solar people can go missing, yes, but it doesn't mean that people will just, necessarily go missing, but they can, let's say, be invisible for a while. There is a surrender associated with Neptune, okay? Just when you didn't think that something is going to pop, it kind of is being retrieved from the bottom of the ocean, like that message in a bottle that you see years after. So it's also a closing square, a closing conjunction. Okay, it's a closing aspect, it's close and open at the same time. So upon the closure, you want to think of your health is also associated, your vision, your heart, and the more poetic or dramatic type of life. If you've been dealing with compulsiveness or a little bit addiction or stuff like that, that could be a closing of a cycle, hopefully not the starting of a new one. But you could do something, maybe you've done something creative with that, and now there's an accumulation of that wealth that you might later translate to something that goes viral. Okay, so performers can go viral, solar figures can go viral. Of course, yes, Neptune is associated with kind of health problems, but also of its miracle in recovery. So miraculous recovery can also be expected. With Neptune, surrender is key. It's about letting go to receive the opulence that it has to offer. And the letting go can be experienced as loss. Okay, so I don't want you to I don't want this to happen to you and to have no validation and think like, where did that come from? I was expecting liquid gold and I lost, my partner, we broke up. Okay, so yes, there is grief, and then let's say you began to write poetry about this, and then, there are a couple of singers that made quite a lot of money, but also touched quite some hearts and made an impact in the world by their own journey of dealing with loss and grief and stuff. So that can also be a part of this cycle. Let's see the major conjunctions. So next up, or way before that, we're going to have Mercury conjuncting Neptune. So right before the Sun, Mercury is going to receive an update, okay, closing a cycle and opening a cycle. Mercury, Neptune. So children, journalists, traders, photographers, people of the word, written or sung, because it's Pisces, so it can be poets as well. Programmers, okay, people of the word of any kind, programmers as well. Chemists, okay, those people can have a closing of a cycle. So Neptune can be both around managing to get away with something. Okay, Neptune, Mercury is the thief that gets away, but is also the thief that believes that they're going to get away with this and are suddenly caught after never having been caught. So Neptune is where you just have to surrender things. And then, of course, right after, it will sextile Pluto. So the markets can be a bit sensitive here. And this is a sensitivity that we don't know to predict. So when I say the market, I mean the fast changing kind, any deal that is fast changing. If you have to sign a contract at this time, preferable that you won't, but if it's no other way, then surrendering the issue can actually yield good results. There can be confusion about the details because Mercury is details and Neptune is obscurity. If you are doing media and your article relies on, let's say, a certain type of obscurity, let's say you cannot show the face of the person, it has to be blurry, then it can suddenly be very clear. Okay? Those are real things that happened to people. So trade, yes, children going missing is the biggest caveat that can happen, but also children that were missing suddenly popping somewhere. And with Neptune, it's not going to be like a search and rescue thing necessarily, although Neptune is rescue, but a leaking footage. Okay, for example, a leaking footage where an Israeli baby was kidnapped around 7 of October. There is a picture that leaked that shows a person wearing blue shirt and a gun, looking completely, like a medical person, but with a gun, something very weird, leaked into the internet. So this is a day where such pictures could go viral, and a lot of people will be asking, who are these people in those kind of blue shirts? Why do they look so casual and normal? Why does this scene look so orderly and yes, and very staged in that picture? So viral pictures, because there can be a closure around certain viral pictures going missing, but and again with missing and words, one thing that I saw, and the co-president of Saturn's history was showing of a certain AI where you searched for the 7th of October, and it says that it was a conspiracy theory, and there are reputable sources. No reputable sources said that it happened, and so on and so forth. This might make you laugh, but this can be done to any type of news. And so us seeing something very visible and it's going missing can be, yes, and to us it's like, of course, this happened, yes. But to the world, this is a part of how collective forgetfulness is, is happening. It's not my term. Is, I think, Professor René. The fact that in Israel we call people by their private name is catching up to me, because I remember her as Professor René, who was researcher in France during the Second World War. So the resistance in France during the Second World War, but she, I believe, coined or researched the term of collective forgetfulness. And this is how forgetfulness helps in preserving certain narratives. For example, the narrative that there was no resistance to Hitler, or that there was no genocide of this and those people, and so on and so forth. More about the synodic cycle. So things going missing and things going viral in their missing. Missing children going viral. Pictures, okay, reveal Neptune is leaking as well. So we'll see. But also new things, okay? Those things lead to a new cycle. Mercury will conjunct the North Node and Chiron on March 19th and 20th. So anything going through the nodes is, yes, we have that sense of desiring to resolve something around themes of Mercury. Mercury-Mars ruled has to do with technology in war, conflict, entrepreneurial businesses as well, especially science and technology oriented, or real estate again. Okay, so trades to do with real estate. It can go from brokerages to just signing contracts and buying estates, or even renting. Where people might desire to unionize and buy assets together, or rent together as a union to combat, things that we see happening. But more, I suspect that this is going to be about weapon technologies, and perhaps a little bit of inflated hopes in science. Chiron is very present, very close to this, and Mercury will conjunct it the day after, so I wouldn't seal the deal on anything on that day. This is March 19th and 20th. Okay, if by any means you can avoid sealing deals or signing contracts, again, if you're an eclipse child, it might mean that this is a part of your journey, but you don't put it in the book if it's not there. Another synodic cycle that is opening is Venus and Saturn, and this happens on March 22. So 12 degrees Pisces, Venus conjoins Saturn on March 22. They are sextiling Jupiter, and applied Venus sextile to Jupiter here, which is the ruler. So what is Venus closing with Saturn? Venus is art, is the voice, is women. We can talk about the situation of women in medicine. The situation of the farmers, okay, shipping goods, the car industry. So, a reality check to aspirations of the car industry. And this, for example, can be when we test certain new types of car for or ship for its durability in water, and we get the results, and so we have to make the adaptation. Okay, but this can also be some long-term results to this type of closure. Um, Marriage is not preferred for other reasons. You want to watch Krasi Atasio's forecast where she deals with invisible planets as well. So it would give you a bit more information on those things that you shouldn't do. But if the commitment is more of a spiritual commitment or religious commitment, a certain sort of religious commitment might come to an end, or philosophical commitment might come to an end, or a philosophical view of marriage, or of women, or of artistic expression, or of form and structure in arts and in music can come to an end, and a new cycle begins. Yes, 12th degree is a very Piscean degree. So again, more Pisces themes coming to the forefront. What you begin now can be a little bit more spiritual, and material gain with this, guys, is less supported. And I think Gracia Tassio, at this time, Venus is already invisible until like June. So if you, like me, have been wondering, will we have a Venus Taurus talisman time this year? So not for the usual things. If you want to go for an invisible Venus, for like meditation or seclusion, kind of more the Ereshkigal phase of Venus, that can be. But if you're like looking for that type of Venus Taurus we had last year, I believe, then yes, at last year, then we're not talking about that type of Venus. Okay, so you want to prepare accordingly. And perhaps very much listening to this video is like, hey, I want to prepare myself for brace myself for this year, because this year Venus Taurus will go through with an invisible Venus, completely other benefits. Okay, so we're talking about more the spiritual facets of Taurus and Venus Taurus, rather than actual material goods. And so the closure might have to do with this. Okay, we close this with the Venus that is more removed from the material realm. Some tremendous good poetry can be written at this time that can be memorable and stand the test of time. It might not yield financially. Could you remedy that with magic? Probably. But before you try to remedy something, let's understand what are the things that we want to sustain here. It's a more internal type of spiritual closure when it comes to things. Perhaps the good news is that it doesn't necessarily mean that like Venusian figures are going to die or anything like that necessarily. And with Pisces, again, a Pisces degree, there is a lot that can be created in that realm which is unseen. Okay. So if you try to develop, let's say, clairaudience, that would be a good time to do so. More of such conjunctions. So, yes, the nodes in Chiron, March 5. So as of March 5th, we have Chiron and the North Node conjuncting, and this will still apply to the eclipse itself. Chiron Rahu have been on and off, like closer together. I think Victor discussed this aspect in length. So I have to admit I don't remember what he said or if I saw the whole episode. Chiron is about resolving some wound or tending to some wound. Rahu, there can be either a new wound, a new way of tending to a wound, a deep desire to solve this wound, to tend to this wound, but also not really knowing how to go about doing so. With Mars in Aries, in Aquarius, this have to do with attempts that are of Martian nature, but also the nervous system nature. So let's say you're discovered, you have been diagnosed as being neurodivergent. So it's a new diagnosis. You feel so relieved, accepted, seen, and you say, oh, now I will try new methods now that I know that I am neurodivergent to tend to a good night's sleep. And you try things and they don't necessarily work out, but you're very excited about trying it again and again. So that can be some of the better things that can happen. You're more excited on trying, but the conjunction is also a hard aspect. So you might be trying again and again, but not really getting it. That thing that changes everything. Do not despair. It will come to you in time. But also this Mars is sextile in Chiron and Rahu. So I predict that certain level of success will be achieved. Okay, might not be as much as you predicted, or it might not make as much change in your life as you thought. And it can be, for example, let's say you're coming out of the closet. And so you think, oh, now my life is going to be transformed. And you discover that life is just as usual, except that now you're out. And it hasn't created all that much difference in your life as you had expected. But the good thing is that this sextile from Mars to Chiron is very supportive of a type of resolution that is more detached, more logically thinking about what you're dealing with, or even astrologically. Okay, so astrological perspective to what you're dealing with can give you a sense of perspective that you need. It might not shift everything in your life, but it makes it a little easier. There is some progress with this Rahu, and this is a good aspect to have at this time. So we said Chiron North Node. We said Venus Saturn. We said Mercury Neptune and the Mercury North Node, and the Mercury Chiron, of course. And we said Sun Neptune. So still a bunch of new beginnings. Okay, Sun, Chiron, Venus, and the Mercury, all having new stuff. Outer planets involved, we have Neptune, and then Saturn is not outer planet, but is big enough to call it a beginning. And we have, of course, the nodes involved. So two things involving Neptune, two things involving the nodes and Chiron, and Venus with Saturn. This is big. Great new beginnings, but because planets are going to begin to be invisible one by one, a lot of these new beginnings happen on a very remote, obscure, spiritual. Spiritual can also be, a way of saying obscure. Because to some people, they experience spiritual as obscure. To some people, it doesn't mean that you don't feel it. It's just that it's not like you can say, oh, well, the stocks went up, the stocks went down. So those type of things that we are all dealing with at this time are beginnings and endings that tend to have a more and more spiritual flavor to them. Okay, I'm saying obscure, and right now the moon is rising, and you see it obscured by the clouds that are either the fog or man-made clouds, and it looks like a foggy moon. That kind of obscure, as I am recording this. Okay, and we are actually heading to the full moon when I think about this. That is with the sun in Pisces and the moon in Virgo. And so since the moon is reflecting the light of the sun and the sun is in Pisces, we have an obscure full moon. That is sometimes how you experience things. So there is a lot of new beginnings that are obscure and a lot of endings that are obscure as well. Okay, the realm of Pisces, going back to the Pisces. The realm of Pisces is obscure because it tends to blend things. The realm of Aries is obscure because of the presence of Rahu that tends to create a lot of illusions. Okay, Rahu takes us where we've never been before, and Aries is about starting something new and innovating. And so the combination of this newness and this go-ness creates an inflated new beginning. So if you're spending money, you're going to be spending it big. If you are taking a step, it's going to be one giant step that can be one small step. Okay, and so those are different ways to come about an illusion that both are kind of always lead to Rome. Where is Rome? We don't know, but for sure always lead to Rome, and you're all going to be in Rome. How does it feel in Rome? It feels just like my house. Well, yes, but surely you understand you are all going to Rome this month. And this is fascinating month, I have to admit, in the sense of obscurity around the eclipses is really something for the novels, but not particularly one for where you want to have, both your feet on the ground. Okay, if you need to make and what are we involving here? We're involving Mars, and we're involving science, and we're involving medicine. So, doctor, how much time do I have left? Around 1 year to a decade. Should I write my partner in my will? Well, we're in a situationship. Do you want to stay for another year in this house? Yes, absolutely. We might go on a trip tomorrow. I might. So there are just so many situationships, but not any situationships just on like a romantic level, is just so obscure, and at the same time so many endings and so many beginnings. And if you talk about movies, this is the kind of movie where the movie ended and you look at the screen and you're like, is this the end? Is this an ending? What is this? What was this movie about? Okay, this is very much the type of endings that we're going to experience. And if you look at a certain beginning and you're like, wait, did I like miss a part of the show? It begins like in the midst of something that is foggy and weird, then you're not imagining this is a little bit of a psychedelic influence. And we throw in an eclipse. So I don't know what to tell you, okay? All the planets are still direct, but they are walking in a cloud. And yet, you know, eclipses, fated endings, fated beginnings. The moon is with Rahu, with Ketu. You see, in the spirit, this is becoming meta more and more, and we're getting the energy of yes, of this one. We take a look. Yes, so lunar eclipse in Libra. And what is fascinating is that we are going to have things that are very materialistically related, like banks, gold, academia, all meshed up within, just within orb of the eclipse. So what is an obscure ending and obscure beginning regarding the banking system? Why, and you know, gold. Let's talk about gold. An obscure beginning and ending to do with gold. What's that? And I'm not even talking about ideation. I'm talking about clear fog. So it's great for the creative arts. It's great for seclusion. It's great for spiritual contemplation. It's great for those type of Piscean experiences where the very part of the all that isness is flowing and you're just sitting on a cloud, but it involves academic structures and academic estates, even the real estate that academic institutions sit around, gold and banks, the medical system. Okay, there is just something off and weird about the entire March. So should you launch anything new? No. If you can, should you commit to anything new? If it is spiritual and that commitment is just like, you know, I'm committing to meditate every day, you might actually do this. Is it like a don't sign contracts and this and that? Well, there is an eclipse. Even if normally I was the person who would tell you, don't do this, must avoid this, don't sign contracts during Mercury retrograde and so on. There is an eclipse. There is an eclipse. Mercury is co-present with Rahu in this eclipse, when conjuncting Aries. Okay? So you're destined to sign some papers, to buy some things, or have some papers missing is also the situation. Yes? Hopefully it's not a refugee kind of situation. Um, but those things are going to show up. Because Moon is co-present with Ketu, when you understand lunar eclipse, you might be letting go of baggage. So just by the merit of letting go of baggage, and sometimes you might not even know, there's going to be some sort of obscure energy thing around letting go of some baggage, and that can be a blessing to you. That's the good thing about the eclipse. You're letting go of energy weight around something. For example, I can say that the FOMO around the fact that I may not have like my savings ready or my estate in Israel, up and running. I don't have an estate in Israel. So, or an estate. so the FOMO is definitely dissolved. Okay, I don't feel like I have been neglectful, or that some karma to my forgetfulness. Like, no, what was I supposed to invest in? My own demise? And so there is a lot of surrendering of something. But then on the other hand, there's a desire for, yes, standing to the new. Okay? There's a desire, and things are also changing in the world in general. So the moon here is losing baggage. If it's luggage, I don't think it's luggage necessarily, unless you are traveling. And so jewelries and artsy things and clothes. So you have like a suitcase full of clothes. She might arrive to Japan while you're traveling to Berlin, and that, yeah. But you might say, oh, well, at least I don't have to carry this, and I can buy whole new clothes and bring them back home in the same price. And it's easy for you to let go. Okay, maybe this is you. But the juxtaposition of the very essence of material things involved and the very obscurity and remote from reality, from material reality, not from reality at all, nature of the events, of the endings and the beginnings, is fascinating. Paint if you can, write if you can, sing if you can, hum music if you can, create something. While you might not like make money from this, you will have beautiful experiences. And yes, because Pisces is so associated with alcohol and drugs and psychedelics, you might want to consider the plant teachers that you are using. With Neptune, as even something like a rescue remedy can go a long way, because it is so energy level thing, okay? So while it's absolutely associated with alcohol, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to use alcohol to reap the benefits of Neptune. So this is also a time where you're going to sense energy a little bit more, depending on the placement. There is a lot of magic to behold as well regarding to that. Okay, it's just important to understand that this is what it is. Communication might be obscure because of the nature of Mercury, so you have to surrender the message. And so, yes, of course, it's eclipse, so naturally you will have conversations that you will need to be less obscure, And some surrender of your ability to do so is in place, is appropriate, because you will not necessarily be understood in the way where you want to convey a clear message. Um, bless me, and you might be certain that you are clear to the other person, and you might be very clear, but the other person is seeing you from a veil of obscurity, and even projection with the sextile to Pluto. And so the message gets lost in the translation between your existential experiences. However, you might manage to convey clarity with the poetic word, the imagery, the abstract type of art or statues, and you can create something that really is standing the test of time. Um, I don't think this is particularly ample time for creating astrological talismans, but I'm not experienced enough in like doing stuff in those conditions. Um, and so, and I do have an Aries honey with Moon conjuncting then of Algety sextile Aries. Uh, so, yes, you could get experimental with this, but you must understand that to be informed that you are doing something experimental is usually very advised. And so, knowing the convention and then either breaking the convention or experimenting with things that you didn't have guidance for, like I said now, or Aries. But here is more, yeah, maybe you will get a Neptune kind of quality to it, and maybe this is something you desire. So let's take a look at the Moon Neptune and what it has to offer. So let's see when the Moon is in Pisces. Moon enters Pisces March 9. Yes, this is right at the entry. But we have so much 11. The Moon will separate. This is the separating, but will conjoin Neptune. This is a Monday, so this is a lunar day. Here, for example, the midheaven is on Jupiter, but the Moon is already separating. But look, this is 3 a.m. Let's do some. Okay. Let's do some hours. Okay, and a little bit earlier. Yeah, so, well, Sunday evening is indeed a Jupiter night. Okay, and Jupiter rules this. And Jupiter is in the 7th house, it's okay. Moon is in the 5th house with Neptune, so for leisure time. I don't have the exact so yes, I don't have the hour. It's going to be a Jupiter night. I don't have the hour. Of course, we'll get the midheaven a bit off the 22nd degree. Yeah, but with Leo in the 5th house, with the Sun in the 5th house, sort of applying to this Jupiter is okay. There is the co-presence of Saturn. And of course, we might prefer Mars not as the ascendant here, although that would give us a Jupiter angle, but no, Mars is too angular here. You might try to play with this and see if you get a better view of this Moon Neptune. It is co-present with Saturn. It's an 11th degree Saturn. So if you are prone to like suicide ideation, I would not recommend it. But if you're looking for like a spiritual solution to this type of questioning, then that may be more of a ritual thing. Wouldn't necessarily like consecrate something with that. But you have to look at it. Okay, Moon Neptune, if you're looking for a trip, then you got it. And this one is going to be particularly trippy. So this is as much. Now, when it comes to, let's say, lunar mentions, I see them growing more and more prominent with people. I don't know, okay? Because lunar mentions are moon related. And the moon, you know, you just go with the cycles of the moon. So you will have to look for this. You might be able to get some lunar mention type of magic into it. Again, for this you want the moon and the ruler of the sign where the moon is at to be in good position, midheaven, ascendant in good position, and the rulers of the signs of midheaven ascendant. I would avoid the 11th and 22nd degree and 18th degree, perhaps except for the 18th degree in Aries, which is the degree of exaltation of the sun. But other than that, I do like pop in some Nicholas Stoyanovich degree theory. And then you say, well, can you ever have an election? Well, you compromise things and you see and try your way. Lunar mention are usually a good thing to start, or fixed stars or lunar mentions. And then, you know, the benefic planets, which are more rare, but lunar mentions, we have more occasions. So this is just my observation. I'm not an expert in that in no way, shape, or form right now. Anything more to say about March? Some radical aspects. Yes. Oh my God, I was not going through all this. Yes, yes, yes. Some radical aspects. So we have the oppositions to Lilith. March 7th, Sun opposing Lilith. And Lilith is in Virgo, 17 degrees. Okay. This is mitigated by Uranus and to some degree by Jupiter. What I like about this, Lilith is more like the gut instinct that we have about something. In Virgo, she's looking for fair trade, 50-50. She's learning about being equal, but also equal in science, equal as an intellectual, and equal in the liberty to explore gender kinks, okay, because she's also sexual. Opposing Sun in Pisces, there can be conflict between two types of creativity. Okay, Sun is where our heart is. We wear our heart on our sleeve. Okay, very poetically in Pisces. Lilith is where we wear our lust on our sleeve. And do not underestimate lust. Okay, lust is not about demonic possession. This is not lust. This is usually some sort of trauma, and usually due to shaming around natural passion, but not passion, even lust. Okay, and a fair amount of lust is important, not only to sexuality, but also to pursuing what we like. It's a sexual energy. And then we have what is happening with our heart and where our lust stands, that are in opposite poles, okay? So, for example, you could be heartbroken but lustful, or you could be very much romantically involved, but not so sexually, okay, or sexual lust towards another person or another situation. Mercury at this time is again in Pisces, so and Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, so there is a little bit of an intricate back and forth. Your vision, your clarity about, around what your gut instinct is. There can be some delusion around this. So you want to make sure that your lust is not held as your love, and your romantic ideation is not necessarily seen as your lust. But there is a potency to have both of them in an indirect way, but might not be simple. Okay, there's a conflict with the object of desire, or with being an object of desire. So, for example, you could want to be desired by someone, but when you are desired by them, there is something that shuts off, or some sort of an intricacy, and you have to surrender this because of the vicinity to Neptune here. But you could also have very spiritual experiences, gut instincts, okay, so taking this beyond like a sexual life, you could have gut instincts that around creative endeavors. You could have interesting dreams and visions, and so your lust could be translated to beautiful visions, and beautiful words, creations, or music. Not necessarily in the sense of alchemy, just by the merit of this is an energy that breeds more than just one outlet. Another more radical aspect. We have Mercury opposing Lilith. Again, the ruler of Lilith opposing Lilith, so communication of your gut instinct, your applied skill, and your gut reaction. So you could, for example, say, I want to research this. As you Google that, you don't really see the results you want to see. So you'd have to surrender it a little bit to find that liquid gold. I now understand that some people see liquid gold as some erotic term for like some kink with P. So that may be for some people, but liquid gold can be around oils as well. Liquid gold can be around acids. Okay, it doesn't have to be like eroticized. Only now I think about this. It's so meta. And of course, we have another money flying out of the pocket kind of aspect. This is March 3rd. Venus is exactly squaring Uranus from Aquarius. And the next up is Mars doing the same. So for Venus, this happens on March 3rd. My approach to hard aspects between the planets that rule our wallet and the planets that rule scattering things, losing things, or surrendering things, or obsessively putting the wallet or what's in it in things, or rejuvenating. Pluto likes to clean something from the core. If this is your wallet, that's what it's going to do. And so my approach to this is beware, prepare. Okay, it's not about trying to tame Uranus, because it will not respond well to that. Okay, if you think about it, let's say in terms of foods, so you say, oh, I don't want to eat sugar. And so you opt for the healthy option, and you cook that healthy option, you buy groceries, they cost you a lot of money, you know, I don't know, the maple syrup, true organic maple syrup and whatnot, and nuts and seeds and whatnot, and fruits. And then you eat that, and then you fall on that, you know, thing that anyway you wanted to buy. And just after eating this nutrient-packed meal that was also a lot of your wallet is in there already, then in your stomach, you want to have that cup of coffee or cappuccino that you desire to begin with, and all of this nutrient-packed meal go to the toilet because nothing absorbs. Okay, this is where you would have been better off buying that milkshake than going for the this is an outer planet to inner planet hard aspect. This is why I'm doing this money flying out of the pocket for Venus Uranus. So Venus Aquarius Uranus, unusual expenses, unusual double whammy, unusual expenses. It's both Uranus in Venus sign and Venus in Aquarius. Unusual things that cost unusual type of money. So this is, for example, where if you go with the flow and you set intention to enjoy this, you might be at the crisis of like, oh my God, I really feel like buying, I don't know, this ice cream that has a green color, but it's unhealthy, but it's this, but it's that. And then you give in to that. And then you see that it's not that costly, that what you thought is weird green is just matcha. And it was overall all not that terrible, also tasting quite lovely, okay? Whereas if you try to control it so much, then you will find out perhaps that this green stuff was radioactive and it was costing way more than you expected it to cost. Intentions and just setting intention to let it go, go a long way with the outer planets. So March 3rd, money flying out of the pocket, okay? Jupiter is co-present with Uranus. It's going to be something big and unusual. Okay? Yes, if you buy a car, you might. But again, eclipse is coming. So you might be letting go of your money. It's like, and then you realize that, oh, that bank just tanked. At least you have that car. It might look weird, but it has a certain artistic value to it. And then the next up is Mars, of course, and Mars. And the next money flying out of the pocket, other than the already eclipse involving Mars and Venus, and Mars, with the Chiron Rahu. Chiron Rahu is money flying out of the pocket. But this one is happening in March 10th, where it's together with the new moon. So Mars squaring Uranus. Mars squaring Uranus from Aquarius. This is also a type of an unusual expense. But for here, if Venus is pleasure associated, Mars is either goal-oriented or acting out of some sort of frustration that you have. You're going to want to define yourself by this purchase, or do an act of asserting yourself through these means of action. So you might actually invest money, depending on your houses. And yes, and again, you might lose that investment. It might come out bad, but also it might not be all that bad if you're just setting up for, hey, something is going to happen around this day where I'm far better off saving for it when I can than believing that the wave will come or the storm will come, and and I can find every dollar that was scattered across the various, I don't know, investments or technology products or crowdfunding. I saw many people advising people, all the rush of the stellium in Aquarius with the digital coins is missing me, because for me it's in the 12th. So I'm like, this is in my 12th. I'm both not energetic enough to do this, and it's in my 12th. If it's not a donation, then it's probably not my type of, or it could be like hidden wealth that I just don't see. But right now it's just very weird dreams. Incredibly weird dreams that involve the significations of the planets, and it's fascinating to delineate them planet by planet. So all in all, March 3rd and March 10th are the ones where the money flying out of the pocket. Now, Mercury conjunct in Neptune, yes, you understand that Mercury is involving trading and exchanging money, and Neptune is involving wiping something clean. So, of course, this is a hard aspect to an outer planet. Let's take a look again when it happens. This is March 8th, okay? So this is where you can expect, okay, you can expect that some compulsive, fated, you know, if you have addictions to shopping or stuff like that, you know that it's coming. It's not about, yes, don't take your measures and stuff like that, but don't rely on your being able to tame yourself around this topic at these dates. So March 3rd, March 8th, and March 10th. And then again, the entire genre of the Chiron Rahu, which is an issue of itself. The highlight parts is that letting go that we have with Venus sextile in Uranus, ruling Ketu in Libra. Okay, there's a certain letting go. So, for example, you might be losing a certain type of even income or assets, but you might also be losing a certain addictive pattern that you had. Let's say, what's Venus addictive patterns? I don't know. Let's say you really liked to buy jewelries, okay? And now you cannot do this anymore because it's lost a certain income pattern. But then now that you cannot do this anymore, you look at all your jewelries and you're like, damn, these jewelries are all golden. I'm actually liking to keep them. I lost the income that I have, but I still have this gold and I want to keep it. I like this jewelry, so it's difficult to keep. It was difficult to keep my money in my pocket, but I like to keep these jewelries because these jewelries, they look very good. And so I let go of that money, but I got these jewelries and now I don't want to sell them. So let's try and think of other ways that I can make money. And then you can have a little bit of a trial and error. But all in all, instead of being less financially stable, you're actually more, because you are invested in a form of assets that is more correct to your type. Okay, so your addiction to buying expensive jewels now became your golden assets. Okay. And that can be the sort of an issue, the sort of an upper that you have there. Yes, now because this is so Mars Venus relational stuff, you know, I already said it. It's way more spiritual than material. Okay, and so but it doesn't mean that it won't pertain to the material. You just look at the material from a spiritual point of view, and this can actually have gains for you in the material, because if you look at I don't know, these the items that you have as all things you can trade and sell, versus you suddenly have a relation to them, a connection to them, or you think about them, and the more like the philosophy of how you dress, and it's not just about that firm or that brand, but what does this color represent? Maybe I will wear that color on that day, and now you are both more thoughtful and you are also more appreciative of what you have in another way. There can also be an experience of having, okay, with Venus, Venus in Jupiter sign, Uranus in Venus sign, co-present with Jupiter, you can suddenly have a more affluent experience. Just the spiritual experiences now can be accessible to you, and therefore some addictions are tamed. Okay, or even if you had a material loss, then you have this new experience of having in a different form of wealth than you've considered. So that can very much assist you in the process. Okay, the Mars is going to be a point of frustration. This is where the money is more going out of the pocket. Okay, for the Venus is just a square with Uranus. For the Mars is all across the board because it's ruling the Rahu Chiron that is perfecting as of March 5th, and it's going to accompany us for the eclipse. Okay, so it's Mars that's creating these, it's not problems, it's problems on the way to solutions, but until the solution is problems, yes? And Mars, you know, it moves by crisis sometimes. So you're going to have a lot of energies within you that are going to be pushing for something, while there are going to be some spiritual fog on the one hand, but also buffer that allows you to contain this fog, at least to some degree. So 2 hours, and I'll say good night. So hope this was useful.